So we're a little over 2 months away from 2026 NBA free agency, and this free agent class has a lot of interesting names to watch out for. From NBA legends looking to get their last championship ring, to young players looking for their first big payday in the NBA. So in today's video, I'm going to be ranking my top 20 NBA free agents of 2026, predicting where they might end up and just how much they might get paid. So without further ado, let's dive right in, starting with my 20th ranked free agent, Benedict Mathurin of the Los Angeles Clippers. This is a very difficult player to gauge on where he might end up or how much money he might make or what his value is across the league, because at his best, this is a guy who can put up 25 plus points with ease. I mean, he can score at all three levels, get to the foul line, and has a lot of positives in his game that you would love to maybe bring in and kind of develop over the years as he's still a younger player. However, there are obvious downsides to his game as well, even offensively, which is his bread and butter. And that's why the Pacers took so long to find out what they were going to do with him, because one night he looks incredible, the next night he looks like a bench player at best. And he could never seem to find that middle ground in Indiana. He didn't really seem to find it with LA. I just don't think Benedict Mathurin has earned the leeway to demand $30 million a year or anything close to that. But teams out there with cap space looking for younger players on the market, like the Brooklyn Nets, the Memphis Grizzlies, could definitely be in on him and give him some money. But if I had to predict where he signs this summer, I would say back with the Clippers on a short-term deal. At 19th, I've got CJ McCollum, whose name has been extremely hot over the last week or so. He's right now lifting the Atlanta Hawks to a 2-1 series lead against the New York Knicks. I haven't recorded this past that point, so if they end up winning that series, that'll be incredible. But he is 34 years old and has been on 3 teams in the last 2 seasons, so that could definitely play a factor in contract negotiations. However, his market is still going to be huge this summer. So many teams out there could use a guy like CJ McCollum, a very reliable scorer from all 3 levels of the floor. I think he's going to get paid a pretty penny, and there are 3 teams specifically that I think are perfect fits for CJ McCollum. For one, the Detroit Pistons desperately need another perimeter shot creator next to Cade Cunningham, and wouldn't cost too much money either. I think that's a perfect fit. The Phoenix Suns could definitely use a legit point guard in CJ McCollum and move Devin Booker back to the 2 guard where he plays best. And the Orlando Magic, a team that feels so close to competing, just missing a few pieces, and CJ McCollum would bring that extra ball handling, that extra shot creation, and extra floor spacing that this team could really use. Or he could just re-sign with Atlanta. They seem to really like him over there. Let's take a word from today's sponsor, Kalshi. Kalshi is the largest prediction market in the US that lets you win money on thousands of different events, the weather, sports, reality TV, and more. You are not going up against a house with the edges stacked against you. It is peer-to-peer trading, real people, real opinions, real money. Sports, politics, pop culture, if it is happening, there is a market for it. And the best part, Kalshi is available everywhere, including California and Texas. So no matter where you are watching this from, you can get in on this right now. Here is how it works. You pick an event, say, will the Portland Trail Blazers win tonight? Or will J.D. Vance be the Republican nominee in 2028? You buy a yes or no contract and you are trading against other users who disagree with you. If you are right, you get paid. You can also jump in and out of your position at any time to lock in a win or cut a loss early. It is flexible, it is live, and it moves fast. Oh, and they have combos. Stack multiple predictions together and multiply your potential payout across completely different events. Look how clean this is. You've got game markets right here, political markets, entertainment. I am looking at who will be the NBA Western Conference champion right now, and I love this one. Here is my take. I think the San Antonio Spurs have a good chance at winning the West, so I'm going with White. This is where putting your prediction on the line actually means something. New users, this is for you specifically. Download the Kalshi app, sign up with code C2C, trade just $10, and they are going to drop $10 back into your account. That is free money just for trying it out. It takes 5 minutes to set up, it works on your phone, and again, California, Texas, all 50 states, you are covered. Code is C2C, link is in the bio and the comments. Let's go. At 18th, let's talk about John Collins, who is one of the more sneaky free agent options on the market. There are so many teams around the NBA looking for a true power forward with size that is also able to knock down that 3-point shot, and that is exactly what John Collins does on the floor. This season for the Clippers, he averaged 13 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist on 55% from the field field and 41% from 3. And last year for the Utah Jazz, he also shot 40% from 3. So this is a guy who is proving himself to be a true threat from the outside. And the modern NBA loves that archetype of player. He can get out in transition, he can finish plays, he can catch lobs, very athletic for his size, and there are going to be so many teams out there looking to pick up John Collins. You'd be getting John Collins in his prime, a guy who can use his size to his advantage while also being a 40% three-point shooter. One of the more interesting names to watch this summer for sure. At 17th, let's talk about Coby White of the Charlotte Hornets, previously of the Chicago Bulls. Spent a good amount of time there and proved himself to be a legitimate scorer. And most recently in the Hornets playing game versus the Heat, he went absolutely ballistic, scored 19 points on 5 for 8 shooting from 3. If there's a team out there in free agency with a vision that my team would be complete if I could just add a scoring guard off the bench to come in and give me 15 points on good efficiency, Coby White is your guy. Now, predicting how much he gets paid is going to be difficult because he's in his prime, or at least close to it, at only 26 years old. And again, he's been a 20 point per game scorer before in his career and also played excellent off the bench for the Charlotte Hornets. But the truth is, over the last half decade or so, the NBA has moved further and further away from prioritizing the scoring guard, prioritizing the one-dimensional guard. And I don't want to say Coby White is one-dimensional because he is a fine playmaker, but his best skills are on the offensive side of the ball, getting buckets, and he's not exactly elite at that either. So if I had to predict, somewhere in the ballpark of 17 to 23 million a year, and I believe he's going back to the Charlotte Hornets. He played a big role in their success in the second half of the season. At 16th, let's talk about Mitchell Robinson of the New York Knicks. This is going to be one of the more intriguing names to watch on the free agent market because in this modern NBA, the center position matters so much, rim protection matters so much, and Mitchell Robinson is one of the NBA's best rim protectors. In only 20 minutes a night for the Knicks this year, he's put up 6 points on 72% from the field, along with 9 rebounds and 1.2 blocks. Not only a great rim protector, but a really good rebounder as well. I hope for the Knicks' sake that they find a way to re-sign him because they are going to have competition this summer. I could definitely see teams like the LA Lakers, the Atlanta Hawks, the LA Clippers throwing him an offer. However, I wouldn't say he gets paid an absurd amount of money simply because of the limitations he has offensively. He's not a threat unless he's under the basket. He also does have injury concerns and he can't shoot free throws. But I could see him signing somewhere in the range of 15 million a year over the next 3 years. At 15th, let's talk about Mark Williams of the Phoenix Suns, who's had a really positive season for this team this year. He's averaged 12 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist on 65% shooting from the field. Now, we all know what Mark Williams is capable of on both sides of the ball. He's just been held back by injuries throughout almost his entire career. And this has been the first season that we've been able to see him play more than 45 games in a year, and he looked like a really solid, reliable starting center for this Phoenix Suns team who overachieved with him playing. He played a career best 60 games this year and showed a lot of positives on the offensive side of the ball, and he's only 24 years old. He will be a restricted free agent this summer, so the Suns can match any offer that he receives. I think the Suns would like to have him back, but if he gets offered a large amount of money from a team like the Chicago Bulls, the LA Clippers, the Golden State Warriors, he's going to have some suitors in free agency, and I wouldn't be surprised if Phoenix ends up letting him walk. At 14th, I've got Ayo Dosunmu of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I cannot stress enough the positive impact that Ayo has brought this team since arriving at the trade deadline. The perimeter defense, the three-point shot, the ability to pass the ball and make plays at the wing spot while also being able to play the guard spot. Very versatile player, very smart player, and he's come up huge for this team in the playoffs as well. Just scored 25 points in game 3. The Timberwolves are an expensive team as is, so it might be tricky handing Ayo the contract that he honestly deserves. He is going to be an unrestricted free agent, so he is free to sign wherever, and that does worry me a bit for Minnesota because I think this guy makes this team a lot scarier, and they should be doing whatever they can to bring him back on a multi-year deal. But like I said, he is free to sign anywhere he wants. He is only 26 years old, a very versatile player that can fit in with any lineup across the league. I'm going to expect a lot of teams to be in on Ayo Dosunmu this summer. At 13th, let's talk about Kristaps Porzingis of the Golden State Warriors. He has had a really difficult time just trying to stay healthy and available over the last 3+ years. He played 17 games for Atlanta until he was traded to the Warriors, where he played only 15 games. games. And yes, he's a really good player when he's out there, no doubt. He can block shots, he can shoot the three-pointer, he can score from basically any level of the floor. But again, do you really want to pay this guy $20+ million a season just so he can play 1/4 of the games? I really don't think so. He's also turning 31 years old this year. It's hard to envision the injuries get any less concerning, so he might not be the most attractive free agent target. But if I had to predict where he lands, I would say back with the Golden State Warriors on a 2-3 year deal. Ideally, he is a perfect fit next to Stephen Curry and Draymond Green, and even Jimmy Butler coming back, that could look even better. And I think the Warriors do want to compete for at least 2 more years, so I think Kristaps will be back on this team. At 12th, I've got Tari Eason of the Houston Rockets. Now, since the Houston Rockets have gone down 3-0 to the LA Lakers, this free agent option has gotten a little bit more interesting in my opinion, because do the Rockets plan on bringing him back if he gets offered a big deal in free agency? He is a restricted free agent, so the Rockets can match whatever offer he gets. And with the way that this Rockets team is just completely falling apart, the body language is terrible, the offense is terrible, the defense isn't holding up like we believed. So are they bringing back this team again? And could we maybe see Tari Eason on a new team next year? I think there's a legit possibility there. This is a fundamentally sound player, a solid 3-and-D wing with a 6'8" frame, maybe inconsistent shooting the 3 ball throughout the course of the year, but is somewhat reliable. And he's only 24 years old, so a lot of room to grow both offensively and defensively, so I can see him being an extremely sought after free agent this summer. Now, whether the Rockets bring him back or not, I'm 50-50 on that. However, watch out for Tari Eason to get paid a pretty penny in free agency. At 11th, I've got Lou Dort of the OKC Thunder, who has an $18 million team option this summer. I would predict that the Thunder pick that up, maybe not extend him, but I think they bring him back for 1 more year. However, there is a chance that they do ultimately decline that and let him sign somewhere else. And if they do end up following through with that, there are going to be so many teams around the NBA trying to bring Lou Dort to their team. The grit, the energy, the perimeter defense, the solid 3-point shooting. He is exactly the type of player that so many teams around the league need. He played a massive role in this OKC Thunder rebuild that eventually led to an NBA championship, and he did play a big role on said championship team. I think a lot of teams, if he becomes a free agent, would like to bring in that winning formula, that winning energy, and see what he could provide for their team in his prime at 27 years old. But like I said, if I had to predict, I would think the OKC Thunder just pick up this team option and let it ride out for 1 more year. At 10th, I've got Andrew Wiggins of the Miami Heat, who actually had a really positive season for this Miami Heat team this year, and it flew a bit under the radar, but played his role, played it really well. He provided them that extra scoring boost when they needed it, averaged 15 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists on 48% from the field and 41% from 3. Now, he does have a $30 million player option that he has to decide whether or not he's going to pick up or decline. Logically, you would think he picks it up, given that $30 million is a lot of money for Andrew Wiggins. But with the way that he played this season, he also had a very productive stint for the Warriors a few years back. He could definitely get a sizable contract, maybe not $30 million, but more guaranteed money over the next few years. So maybe he does opt to decline that option, and if he does, I could see a multitude of teams out there targeting Andrew Wiggins. At 9th, I've got Walker Kessler of the Utah Jazz, who will be a restricted free agent this summer. Now, he did miss this entire season with a shoulder injury, but if you've seen Walker Kessler over the last 2 to 3 years in Utah, you would know this guy has all the skills necessary to be a long-term franchise center. Now, the injury definitely does throw a wrench in things. I don't think he's going to make as much money as he would have had he not gotten injured, but I do expect the Utah Jazz to bring him back. They had opportunity on top of opportunity to trade him for picks, and they didn't. They seem to really like what he can bring, so I would expect him to be back. At number 9, I've got Peyton Watson of the Denver Nuggets. This might be one of the more sought after free agents of the summer. He's arguably the best player to hit the market that is under 25 years old, so you can bet every team with cap space will be throwing him an offer. Denver dealt with multiple injuries this season and saw a bit more of Peyton Watson than maybe they expected at the start of the season, and they ended up starting him for 40 games this year, and in those 40 games, he averaged 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. He had by far and away the best season of his career, showed a ton of upside on both sides of the ball. We've seen him be a good defender so far through his career, but the offensive leap that he took, being able to create his own shot, get out in transition, shoot the 3 ball effectively at 41%, and and he's only 23 years old. And this puts the Nuggets in a very tricky spot because you do not want to lose the best young player on your team for nothing in free agency, but you're also one of the more expensive teams in the NBA. So it's definitely going to be challenging forking up the amount of money that Peyton Watson is going to want this summer while also paying Christian Braun, Aaron Gordon, and Cameron Johnson. So that leaves a real opportunity that we end up seeing Peyton Watson walking in free agency. He could get up to $25 to $30 million a season on his next deal, and as a restricted free agent, the Nuggets have the opportunity to match that, but I don't know if they are able to do so. So like I said, arguably the best player on the market under 25 years old, he's going to have a ton of suitors around the NBA, and I don't know if the Nuggets will be able to afford to keep him around. At 7th, let's talk about Norman Powell of the Miami Heat, who was an all-star this season and played one of the better seasons of his career for this Miami Heat team. He averaged 22 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists on 47% from the field and 38% from 3. Now, we did see a bit of a rift grow between Norman Powell and the Miami Heat as they did bring him off the bench in the second half of the season, and he is going to be needing a contract extension at the age of 32 years old. And most people are not expecting Pat Riley in the Miami Heat front office to fork over a big multi-year contract to a guy who is close to being past his physical prime. So that definitely leaves opportunity for Norman Powell to leave this team in free agency, even though he was an all-star in his first season here. But again, he is 32 years old. We know the Miami Heat are not scared of letting good players walk, and he had this same issue with the Clippers. They also did not want to extend him either. So I could see a team maybe like the Brooklyn Nets who would like to be a little bit more competitive next year and bring in a proven veteran that can score the ball efficiently, or maybe a team like the Milwaukee Bucks who would like to add another offensive piece if Giannis decides to stay. And I think at this point there's a higher chance Norman Powell leaves the Miami Heat this offseason than re-signs. At 6, let's talk about Isaiah Hartenstein of the OKC Thunder. Now, he does have a team option on his contract for $29 million, so if the Thunder want him back for one more year, they can absolutely do that. But this Thunder team got really expensive really quick, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that they do let him explore his options in free agency. And if he does, he would be without a doubt one of the hottest targets of free agency. He played a massive role in the OKC Thunder winning a championship. He played excellent defense, a very sound offensive player, a very smart player at the big man spot, and really he'd be a seamless fit for almost every team in the NBA looking for that long-term starting center. And being only 27 years old, showing so much on the defensive side of the ball, being in his physical prime, you can almost guarantee if he does find his way into free agency, he will be signing a massive 3 to 4 year deal. There are plenty of teams around the NBA that he would fit right in with, but specifically, I really like the fit with the Charlotte Hornets, the Chicago Bulls, and the Atlanta Hawks. But if I had to predict what happens with Isaiah Hartenstein this summer, he probably gets his team option picked up and runs it back with OKC for one more year, or gets traded on the last year of that deal. At 5, I've got Trae Young of the Washington Wizards, who technically has a player option that he could decline and enter free agency, see what other teams are willing to offer for him, but from everything we've seen, he will likely be returning back to the Washington Wizards. They didn't trade much to get him, and they seem to be excited to go into next season with Alex Sarr, AD, and Trae Young, so I'm expecting him to either pick up that player option or re-sign with the Washington Wizards on a long-term deal. At 4, I've got James Harden of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who does have a player option this summer for $43 million, but it's been almost confirmed that he will decline this player option and test free agency. I would expect him to be back with the Cleveland Cavaliers, considering that they just traded Darius Garland to get him, but from what we've seen out of this Cavs team in the playoffs, it hasn't been very reassuring, so that does, I guess, leave the door open for James Harden to leave if this team does crumble in the playoffs, but I wouldn't bet on it. The Cavs did just bring him in, so it makes sense to extend him for at least another 2 years. He will be 37 years old next year, so it's hard to see any team out there besides the Cavs giving him long-term money, and even if they do fall apart in the playoffs, I think they'll just run it back again, a full season of James Harden and Donovan Mitchell, and if it doesn't work again, then we can talk about a new team for James Harden, but I would expect him to be back with the Cavaliers. At 3rd, let's talk about Austin Reaves of the Los Angeles Lakers, who will be without a doubt one of the best players on the free agent market this summer. This season, he put up 23 points a night along with 5 rebounds, 5 assists on 49% shooting from the field and 36% from 3. Now, there is definitely a possibility that he could could be on another team to start next season. You can never count anything out in the NBA. However, I highly doubt that the Lakers let Austin Reaves walk. He is their homegrown star. He played like an all-star throughout stretches this season and does look like a competent fit next to Luka Doncic in the backcourt. However, it's not going to be easy for the Lakers to bring him back. He is going to have a ton of suitors out there in free agency. Teams are going to be dying to pick up a 27-year-old guard that just averaged 23 points a game. And even with him playing as phenomenally as he did offensively this season, it still feels like we could see him hit another gear. Maybe we haven't seen the best of Austin Reaves yet. I think he still has even more to showcase to his game, and if the Lakers do somehow get priced out on him this summer, I could 100% see teams like the Brooklyn Nets, who have a ton of cap space to spend, even the Chicago Bulls, who would like to add talent around Josh Giddey, and even the Sacramento Kings, who are looking for their point guard of the future, could be involved in an Austin Reaves sweepstakes. But I would expect there to be a huge bidding war for him in the summer. At 2, I've got Jalen Duren of the Detroit Pistons. This is certainly going to be an interesting name to watch because throughout the season, Jalen Duren stepped up as a legit second option next to Cade Cunningham. He averaged 19.5 points, 10.5 rebounds, 2 assists on 65% shooting from the field. He had a phenomenal regular season, a true breakout year, and it looked like he had played himself into a supermax contract. But so far in these playoffs, it has been a complete different story with Jalen Duren. He has been unplayable in certain situations and really has not been the physical bruiser that we've seen all year. So with him coming out as flat as he has in these playoffs, getting out-rebounded, out-hustled by the Orlando Magic, it's hard to see that the Pistons still give him this supermax deal. But either way, whether it's a supermax or not, I see a 0% chance that he leaves this team in the offseason. He will be a restricted free agent. The Detroit Pistons can match any offer that he gets, and he did play a massive role in the Detroit Pistons being the #1 seed in the East this year. So I would almost guarantee that he is back in Detroit. And at number 1, let's talk about LeBron James of the LA Lakers. This is probably going to be one of the biggest stories of the offseason. LeBron James, playing potentially his last year or two in the NBA, will be a free agent and free to sign with any team he chooses. But we all know he's not just going to sign anywhere. He's definitely not going to Memphis. He's not going to Utah or any team that's not competing for a title. Even at 41 years old, he's still looking to play on the highest level for a team that has a chance at an NBA championship, which certainly narrows down his options in free agency. For one, there's a chance he simply just re-signs with the Lakers. However, I highly doubt they would pay him the $50+ million he's making on his current deal. But this team next season, with Luka Doncic and most likely Austin Reaves, can still make a run at things and give LeBron a good chance of competing late in the postseason. And I'm sure staying in LA is probably in his best interest. He wouldn't have to take on a new role or fit in with a new team and city at 41 years old. He could just play out the remainder of his career with Luka Doncic and the Lakers, and I think that's honestly the most likely option for him. However, there are 3 teams that stand out in free agency as legitimate LeBron James destinations. For one, the Golden State Warriors, still looking to compete in the latter years of Stephen Curry's career, also have Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green still on the roster. LeBron James and Stephen Curry being teammates at the end of their careers would be one of the coolest stories in NBA history, and the fit definitely does make some sense. However, you do have to be cautious about adding a 41-year-old LeBron to already one of the oldest rosters in the NBA currently. The New York Knicks, who are desperate for a title with Jalen Brunson at the helm, could definitely be in on LeBron James as well. They've been a rumored destination for LeBron for the last decade plus, and they do have a good surrounding core of Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, and Mikal Bridges that could definitely entice him to play for them. And LeBron could bring that extra offensive firepower with the playmaking, the basketball IQ, and the scoring that could take this Knicks team to the next level. And of course, the Cleveland Cavaliers, where it all started for LeBron, the team that drafted him, his hometown team. They are also looking to compete for a title out of the Eastern Conference with a dynamic core of James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. Slotting LeBron into that small forward spot could take this team to the next level. And the idea of LeBron bringing home a second NBA championship to the team that drafted him would be an incredible story. So he definitely does have some compelling options in free agency to choose from, but a lot of it will come down to whether or not he's willing to sign a smaller contract, maybe even a minimum contract, and that's something we haven't seen LeBron James do yet in his career. But anyway, anyways, that is going to wrap it up for me. If you guys did enjoy this video, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Let me know what you guys are most excited to see in NBA free agency, and I hope to catch you guys in another video soon. Until then, I'm out. Deuces.